Time on the Isle of Mull feels different. The pace of life is slower, calm. Our surroundings are different. We islands remind me to appreciate the simple things, like getting the kettle ready for the morning coffee, or hearing Toby's nose excitingly sniff in every direction as we have a wee wonder. Travel is exhilarating. Travel is movement that I need to feel good. I've always associated travel with fun, beauty, happiness, rest. I've never had to travel from place to place because of displacement in any of its forms. This is a privilege that I have. Migration has existed for thousands of years. Indigenous peoples have migrated across lands and their cultures have evolved. Migration is part of my ancestral history. Recent research has confirmed the complexity of indigenous peoples migrating to South America. According to a National Geographic article, research teams have discovered signs that a group of indigenous peoples from Mexico or Central America spread out into South America and northward into what is now the U.S. Great Plains 8,700 years ago. Migration is also part of my family history, my personal history. My parents immigrated to Chicago as children because the only option they had in Mexico was poverty. Their move to El Norte wasn't ideal. The risks were many, the preparation for it was traumatic, the move was traumatic, the aftermath was traumatic. While migration is challenging, it can result into something beautiful, a legacy. My maternal and paternal grandparents persevered, lucharon. My mom's father migrated to California through the Bracero program. My mom's father worked in the fields with his brother, my Papa Ramon. My Abuelito Chevio became a bracero because his young family needed money. Migration was survival or perish for my mom's family. My dad's father migrated to Chicago and became a traquero. He built and maintained railroads along with hundreds of thousands of Mexicanos. My abuelito Lole left his little ranchito because his young family needed money. Migration was also a need for my dad's family. My grandparents have taught me that change is uncomfortable, but that I can yield a fortitude which can keep me undeterred from achieving my dreams. My mom's mother in particular reminds me that strength is not measured by size. My Abuelita Maria was barely 5 feet, and yet she's the reason that our family stayed together and that my mom and dad met and why I was born. My Abuelita Maria was a leader who early on learned that being independent and proactive was foundational for any girl and woman. Unlike my grandfathers, my Abuelita Maria experienced a different type of migration. The first time she migrated to El Norte, she went looking for her husband, my Abuelito Chevio. After a cyclical period of working the fields, my Abuelito Chevio had decided to forget about his family in Mexico and start a new life in Chicago. There's no doubt that my Abuelita Maria migrated out of rage towards her husband and the love she held for her children. As a woman with 5 children already in rural Mexico, it was almost impossible to provide for her family as a single parent, a single mom. In this moment, migration for my Abuelita Maria meant leaving behind her children in Mexico as she tried to save their futures by searching for their father. I reflect on my abuelita's decision to migrate, and It's upsetting that she had to choose between the pain of family separation or the acceptance of permanent destitution. It seems either way, my abuelita would carry a mountain of emotions with her. I know I could say that migration might have meant hope for my abuelita in this instance. However, considering that both of these options would hurt her children, I don't think my abuelita would be able to move past the pain of choosing a lesser evil. The second time my abuelita migrated wasn't any simpler. My Abuelita Maria's second attempt is one that was filled with the danger of the unknown. She arranged everything, but as her little family were driven across Mexico, they were more vulnerable than ever. Movement became a matter of life or death for my abuelita and her children, which included my mom. Every little step she took could be the last. After walking through valleys and bodies of water, my Abuelita Maria reunited her 5 children with their father. That was my abuelita, committed to keeping everyone together because her children deserved more. With the same strength, my parents also lucharon. Their whole world was dismantled and they found homes in Chicago. I have read that cultural bereavement is grief that is caused by the loss of one's social structure and culture. There's no doubt in my mind that my parents have grieved. As an individual now living far away from home, I can confirm that there is a mixture of feelings that weighs heavy on my heart when I think about what I once had. Up to this day, my dad warmingly reminisces about the days that he would pick off an orange from the tree that his mother planted in front of his childhood home in La Calera. I think migration for my parents was confusing and frightening. My mother was 14 and my father was 13 at the time. They would have to start over. Before actually leaving her home in Mexico, my mother had already felt the impact of migration. My mother was abandoned as a result of her mother's decision to migrate. I believe migration for my mom is equivalent to a lack of safety. Migration veiled my mom with anxiety for the first time. And it's a veil that has never come off. And unfortunately, it didn't stop there for my mom. Migration threatened my mom's life again on the day she left her home in Zitácuaro for good. She trusted her mother, but she knew her mother could only control so much as they were driven north. After passing the border, my mother was abandoned again, and again she waited for her mom to return. I believe being in migration was like breathing as if it was your last breath, not knowing what awaited in the next second, in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day, in the next month, in the next year. My father left behind the freedom to roam the hills of his home in Mexico and be near to where his mom was buried. My father also felt the impact of migration before he even made his way north. My father's father was absent often due to his work on the railroad in the Midwest. And without a mother, my father and his brothers were raised by the women of their small rural community. Because of migration, my father didn't have the relationship he deserved with his parents. Because of migration, my father lost the community that raised and cared for him. I believe migration forced my father to normalize the voids of his life. However, instead of wishing his story was someone else's, my father appreciated the little that he did have. That gratitude is still as radiant as ever, and it's quite remarkable. My parents coped in the best way that they could in Chicago. They navigated an entire new culture without even knowing any English at first. As they settled down in Chicago, my parents encountered educational policies that were not securing their ability to progress past the survival mode that they had been raised in. My migration story is different. I chose to leave not out of the need to break free from poverty, but to be who I was meant to be. Migration in my case was choosing freedom. There was plenty of unknown at the beginning, but I never had to experience the dangerous unknown that my parents and my grandparents experienced. Sure, there is plenty of unknown ahead of me, but I do have a solid foundation. The migration of those who came before me have enabled me to move in this world with more ease. Because of my grandparents, I was born in a country with more opportunity, and because of my parents, I've acquired more education than the average person. As I'm here experiencing the wonder of the Isle of Mull, I'd like to think that I've acquired the resilience of my grandparents and parents and all my ancestors who had to migrate for a safer and happier life. I don't think any of my ancestors ever thought that one of their own would end up on the other side of the world. I think they would understand though, and perhaps maybe they'll have a good laugh and smile with pride. I don't take for granted any place that I travel to, and that day will never come. You know why? Because I know what it took for me to have options. I am forever indebted to my parents and grandparents, and I wear that feeling like a badge of honor. Friends, what are your migration stories? And what impact have they had on you? Feel free to share and comment below. All right, friends, see you next week.